Kevin Bradley, Director of EU Regulatory and Public Affairs for the Nickel Institute here in Brussels. You're at a Fondation EurActiv event where we're discussing electric cars. Clearly, for the majority of people, things like nickel and electric cars, the link might not be so obvious. Where do you see it? What's your role here?
Well, quite right. The issue of electric vehicles and a specific metal or any metal is something the public would have difficulty in making the connection with. It's the same even for some policymakers. The fact is that electric vehicles use battery technology. Nickel is used in battery technology, has been for many years. One only has to think of the conventional batteries we use in households, nickel-cadmium batteries. But the batteries that are used more and more, and particularly in electric vehicles, are a type of battery which is a metal hydride battery, nickel metal hydride battery. And nickel is an element. It's a metal, of course, and it's absolutely critical, in fact, for the battery technology. And that battery then, of course, is used in electric vehicles, predominantly at the moment in the hybrid form. People who are familiar with for example, the Toyota Prius and so on. And it's that type of technology at the moment which is the prevalent technology in batteries.
Okay, now this particular debate relating to electric cars obviously is very important in terms of transport. It's very important in terms of innovation policy. Where do you see the debate going over the next few months?
Well, I think the two things are important here. Innovation and electric vehicles, transport. There's also the context as well. I mean, I think we should step back and think of the energy climate change debate. We know, of course, that debate has stalled slightly. But nevertheless, it's there. It's a reality. Decisions have already been taken with respect to EU commitments in relation to CO2 emissions. There are commitments as well in relation to using renewable energies. There are commitments in relation to energy security. Now, within all of that mix, it's going to require we know, a combination of efforts, and this is already happening. And in the innovation field, we're going to need to examine all possibilities in relation to how technology might help us to get to those goals. As far as the Nickel Institute is concerned, the nickel metal has been involved in many different applications. Again, it's a similar issue. It's very difficult to sort of connect the specific metal with the specific innovation, but most applications, everyday applications, where nickel is involved, have an innovative component, whether it's in the stainless steel, high temperature stress alloys, whether it's, again, back in this area of battery technology. We've all heard of the sort of coming technology. It's not even a coming technology, it exists already, lithium-ion technology. But even in lithium-ion technology, there are other metals involved. Nickel is one of those metals, and it's a combination of metals which gives the unique properties in terms of the energy efficiency, the energy capacity of such technologies. Innovation cannot take place without metals, that's for sure. And the European metals industry is going to be a vital component in making our goals realistic and certainly making them achievable in the long term.
Okay. Now it's interesting you mentioned things like climate change a moment ago. Clearly, as you say, and it's been obvious to everybody for many months, the public needs to be connecting in a much greater way in terms of everybody, each individual's contribution to reducing a carbon footprint. So you mentioned, we're talking about electric cars, you've mentioned climate change. Somehow we need to connect the conversations going on with policymakers and at a government level and with the man on the street that actually needs to use an electric car or needs to reduce their carbon footprint. How do you think we can go about getting that conversation to them? Where's the communication angle?
Well, I think the communication angle it's possible, I think. I mean, one just has to look outside the window and one can see and try to imagine, can we move the current car fleet as we see it, as it expresses itself every day to us? Can we imagine a situation where that is either half hybrid or fully electric, and what that might mean? Right now, we're quite a considerable distance from that. We may even have to think about how we communicate that. At the moment, we're tending to communicate a little bit too, I would say, ambitiously. I think we need to moderate a little bit some of the expectation there. That's not to say that we shouldn't say that it's not possible, but we should moderate a little bit some of the expectation. Mm-hmm. We shouldn't forget too that the convenience of the current car model, the internal combustion engine, the fueling setup, the fact that you just get into your car, you didn't have to think, oh, I didn't charge it last night. All of these things, the psychology is also quite important. Again, it's to me, as not just as the Nickel Institute, but personally, is something which I think in communication we need to be careful about. You know, it's not just a simple question of let's get rid of all these cars and replace them with electric vehicles. And we also need to think about the environmental consequences of that, because it will require a whole set of other types of ways of dealing from the raw material side, and also recycling, because we'll have batteries to recycle. How do we recycle them? The technology is there, of course, but we will have to, in other words, change from one whole system to another system. It's not just a question of a vehicle and a powertrain.
It's massive infrastructure change, isn't it?
It's quite substantial. It's quite substantial. So again, I think a little bit of moderation in the communication, I think, of the expectation is important.